Hey everyone, here's a return to the Gimme 10 series. Some people have expressed an interest in me talking about some of my favorite music books. So I'm happy to oblige. I don't know if it's a very definitive or very riveting list of books, but I've selected for you today 10 books that are genre specific rather than artist specific. So there's no book in there in my list of books that talk just about one artist. They talk about a range of artists or the movement, musical movement or label or a style of music. So without further ado, I'm going to start. And the books are loosely classified by size, from the smallest to the bigger one. But you know, there's no ranking in there. It's just books. The first one is "Rip It Up and Start Again" by Simon Reynolds. I find post-punk to be a very, very interesting topic. The music itself is one of my favorite sort of sub-genres of rock. And this book really does a great job of going in depth with a lot of different wings of that movement, from the Sheffield sound to what was happening in London, in New York, in Manchester with Joy Division, for example. You have so much detail and depth in there. There's a companion book that goes with this, which is called, which is the Post-Punk Interviews. It's on my shelf. I can't remember the name of it right now. Yes, Totally Wired, it's called. Simon Reynolds is a very well-known journalist, English journalist. He's written several books like Retromania and obviously this. To give you a little bit of an overview, this talks about Pill, Joy Division, Talking Heads, Throbbing Gristle, Scritti Politti, Gang of Four, Devo, Cabaret Voltaire, The Slits, Magazine, Perubu, The Fall, amongst others. So very, very, very many. Oh, Human League, The Specials, ABC, Associates, Susie and the Banshees, and so on and so forth. So a very, 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 very well recommended book on this topic if you like post-punk. The next book, not too far in spirit, is a book about reggae and in all its forms, Bass Culture by Lloyd Bradley. A book I read many, many years ago, and I should reread it. It's a fascinating read. It goes into the history of how the Rasta movement came to be, the story of Ali Selassie and Marcus Garvey, and this kind of narrative that informs reggae and goes into roots and dancehall and rock steady, lovers rock, dub. Big section on dub on this. Very, very interesting, riveting book. Absolutely riveting. Very rich, lots of detail. Continuing. Here is a recent acquisition. It's a book called Between Sound and Space, an ECM sound primer by a guy called, his name is Tyron Grillo. I don't know if this will focus. I have no idea. The camera will do it. And so this guy runs a blog, a sort of blog on ECM. I think the blog is called Between Sound and Space from memory. And he writes reviews in the blog, and he's just compiled them into a book. Now, I didn't open the other two books because there's no point, But here there's pictures. So, for example, each page has an album and a write-up by this guy. I mean, it's interesting, and it just spotlights some interesting or off-the-beaten-track albums from ECM. So it's all ECM. If you're a fan of ECM, as I am, and there are also some classics, like, for example, here is Abdullah Ibrahim with his piano record, Benny Maupin, which in the VC, well known, and so many more. This is a great book. You can order this book directly from Tyron Grillo, and it's very cheap, so, little recommendation. Now, here's a book that I absolutely love. It's a book that I found randomly in a second-hand bookshop in Melbourne about 10 years ago. And it's called New Sounds. And it's dubbed The Virgin Guide to New Music, including people like Keith Jarrett, David Byrne, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, Laurie Anderson, Brian Eno, Kitaro. That gives you a bit of an overview. This book is divided into chapters which deal largely with either European avant-garde music, fusion, ethnic music. So I'll give you a sample of the type of chapters. The electronic age, process music, Meet the Minimalists. I think that's a tongue-in-cheek reference to Meet the Beatles. New music for the concert hall, world music, ethnic music, unusual folk song arrangements, ECM and Windham Hill, and so on and so forth. So each chapter has a write-up about, so if you look at something like, here's the Meet the Minimalist chapter, it tells you all about the story of minimalist music, and then it even divides it up into, you've got a sub-chapter on Lamont Young and Terry Riley, if you want to learn about these people, essential musicians. And then it has a selected discography of that style of music, of the main references, and a little review of each album. So this page has got things like Penguin Cafe Orchestra, Richard Pinas, Steve Reich, Michael Nyman, it's Terry Riley. And the book has, as I said, a lot of ethnic music, like Indian, Hindustani, African music. This is one of my favorites. I always go back to it. It was written by John Schaeffer. One of my favorite books on this list. Another collection of writings that's really, really good is the Wire Primers. The Wire is a UK magazine that's been published for years. And I used to be a subscriber for a little while, which is how I found out about this book. And The Wire specialized in avant-garde, experimental music. This was edited by Rob Young, who I think is the editor of the magazine. And this is a table of contents. I don't know how much is going to focus. So you can see it goes from avant rock to some more very, very experimental things like John Cage and all these things. So the primers are sort of micro guides on a certain genre or artist. So for example, in this book you have a primer on James Brown. You have one on Captain Beefheart. You have a primer on noise in general. You have a primer on Ornette Coleman on this. You have a primer on Frank Zappa. Here's the Ornette Coleman one. This is great to get into avant-garde music. Really, really, really recommend it. And you can get this quite easily. The next one is a book that I really also absolutely recommend. It's called The Record Players, DJ Revolutionaries, the story of dance music told by those who spun it. And so this is a collection of interviews of these DJs, amongst which you will find Grandmaster Flash and Jeff Mills. You have Norman Cook. You have people like Frankie Knuckles, Africa Bambaataa, François Kervokian, Derek May. So in there you've got like an interview, and sometimes you'll have even their playlist. If they were a club DJ like Larry Levan or people like that, you would have their entire playlist. Some good little artifacts in there, little things, records that they would have produced or been on. And fantastic read, fantastic book, amazing collection of, see here, here's a playlist just to show you. This book was written by Bill Brewster, and I think it's a companion piece to Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. Here's another book I bought about 10 years ago, which it was a second-hand book. It's called Modulations. It's the history of electronic music. And the chapters here include pioneers, krautrock, disco, post-punk, house, hip-hop, techno, jungle, ambient, down tempo. So each chapter, for example, is the techno chapter. It has a selected discography of techno, and then a history of techno, for example, with the main players, the Belleville 3 and the, Jeff Mills and Drexciya, for example. So this book is from 2000, so it's not quite current anymore, but this is Aphex Twin, Oteka, etc. Right, the next one I want to talk about is a book about Blue Note. This is called Uncompromising Expression. I think it's an essential book to understand the label Blue Note. It has the whole history of Blue Note, as well as some great session photos. And then what I love the best is that they have double pages on key albums that we should all have and listen to. Speak No Evil. Here's a classic Blue Note dialogue by Bobby Hutcherson. Mode for Joe. And then so you've got the history of Blue Note. It goes into labels, Japanese OBs and labels. This book is nothing short of essential. If you like jazz, if you like Blue Notes, that's a book. There's a book about warp here, which I really recommend. It's called Labels Unlimited Warp. And if like me, you're a fan of the label Warp is the label that put out Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada, LFO, Broadcast, Square Pusher, lots of amazing acts from the 90s, 2000s. Keeps putting Oteka, obviously. This gives you a good overview of the Warp label and how it started, and great Richard D. James, Aphex Twin, one of the greatest musicians of our time, really, and talks about the graphic design in elements. This is by also a Rob Young, who did the wire primers. A couple more. This is really a Gimme 11. I'm cheating. There's 11 books there. Doesn't matter. One of my favorite labels, Island Records. I mean, I think one of the most original and forward-thinking labels in rock history. Started as a reggae label by Chris Blackwell, and this has some beautiful artwork in there. It has stories of bands like you get Marianne Faithfull, Marley and the Wailers. You've got all the reggae stuff like Man there. You can see you've got Eno obviously and Kevin Ayers. It's a beautifully edited book. Things like the Amazing Traffic or Sparks or Roxy Music. I bought this book as soon as it got printed, and I quite often flip through it, and it's called Keep On Running: The Story of Island Records. Edited by Suzette Newman and Chris Salivich, with a preface by Chris Blackwell. And the last one is a book on hip-hop. because hip hop is a very, very important genre of music. And here we've got Hip Hop Raised Me. Sarah bought this for me for either a Christmas or maybe one of our anniversaries. It's a beautiful book. I mean, it's got the whole of hip hop from the beginning to now. Really, it's you know, it talks about, you know, all the various sub schools of hip hop. You know, from you know, the native tongues to gangster rap to you know, more current stuff, and has, you know, chapters about you know, it talks about Africa Bambaataa, Tribe Called Quest, the Beastie Boys, Chuck D, Common, Cypress Hill, De La Soul. I mean, you've got just about everyone is represented. It's a monster book, but if you want to find out about hip hop and it's your thing, then there you go. All right, VC. Hopefully this was not too painful for you. Leave me some comments. All right, take care.